Hey, it's David at olliegolf.com. Today I have on the show, excuse me, Bob Friend, a PGA and Nationwide Tour veteran. Bob is going to talk to us today just about his journey through golf and some of the insights that he's learned and he's experienced. Bob, welcome to the show.
Oh, David, it's great to be on with you.
So, Bob, before we get into the meat of just your career in golf in general, let's take us back in time. Why golf? For those of you out there who don't know who your father is, why did you choose golf?
Well, look, it was one of those things that my dad obviously is the former Pittsburgh Pirate pitcher from 1951 through 1965, and then in '66 with the Mets and then the Yankees. It was one of those things where I played baseball and I played football and I wrestled and I played ice hockey and basically did just about everything. And then my dad played golf, and it was one of those things that I started caddying when I was a kid. This is back before everybody got really crazy. Can't do work until they're 16 or whatever. I started caddying when I was 11. And, I enjoyed it, made the money, and I started playing some golf when I was about 13, started taking some lessons. And then when I was 14, they played the PGA Championship at our club in Pittsburgh, which is Oakmont Country Club, of which I'm still a member. And that was a time back in the 70s, really before pre-1985, 1982, 1985, that the players on the PGA Tour took the local caddies as their caddies during tournaments. Now that never happens. Now they all have their tour caddies that travel with them that get paid, quite handsomely. They're very, very professional. But back then, in the 70s and really before 1982, 1985, the touring players took the local caddies. And so with all the other caddies at Oakmont, I was placed in the lottery and I got a bag. And the gentleman that I caddied for was a guy by the name of John Bonella, who wasn't much of a player. He was a club professional player. And he was a club pro from Olathe, Kansas, and he had qualified for the PGA Championship by playing very well in the National Club Professional Championship. At that time, the top 40 in ties in the what's referred to as the CPC qualified for the PGA Championship. So it's a very, very unique opportunity for the club professionals to play with the greatest names in the game. And so I got my bag and met him on the Sunday prior to the tournament in August of 1978. And he came and introduced himself, and he said to me, I said, I'm a club pro, and he said, I'm just delighted to be here, and I hope I play well, but if I don't, he said, I've got a very neat surprise for you. He said, Tom Watson is my boyhood friend, and we're going to play our practice rounds on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with Tom Watson and Andy North. Now, Watson at the time was the best player in the world, and Andy North was the U.S. Open champion in 1978, having won at Cherry Hills. And so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the PGA Championship, I am inside the ropes with the greatest player in the world, Tom Watson. And by the end of the week, I remember my guy, Mr. Cut, didn't play well, but I ended up watching, every round, every shot, this, that, and the other after my guy missed the cut. And on Monday morning, my dad, kind of in the insurance brokerage business, he said, what'd you think of your week? And I just said, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I want to do when I grow up. And then, my father being a former professional athlete himself knew exactly what it took. And so I worked extraordinarily hard. And it was a game that I absolutely loved. I took to the game, had some talent, some athletic ability passed down from my father. But I stopped playing all the other sports really when I was 15. I stopped playing football as a good football player. I stopped playing baseball. I stopped wrestling, and I focused solely on the game of golf. I did in the wintertime when the weather was halfway decent and be out on the range hitting balls in the cold weather. When it wasn't, I would go to an indoor range that was in the North Hills area of Pittsburgh and practice. But one way or the other, I practiced, 12 months out of the year as best you can as a youngster growing up in the Pittsburgh area. So it was one of those things where my father was fully supportive. He immersed me in all the other sports and kind of took the opinion of, let the kid choose. I'm going to introduce him to everything and let him make a decision. And so it was just the game of golf that stuck with me, and it's the greatest game in the world.
Wow. So that's funny. My next question was why golf, and I think you kind of answered that swimmingly.
Well, no, it is. I think, David, it's one of those things as well. When you sit there and your father's a professional athlete, the kid is either going to, he's either going to run from the limelight or he is going to run towards it. And I've got a little bit of a ham. I got a little ham in me. And I always loved being in front of people and entertaining. And, I loved, my days on the PGA Tour and, the nationwide / which is called the web.com for now. I absolutely loved playing in front of people. And I just took to the game, but I worked extraordinarily hard my whole life, and I still do.
Exactly, obviously. Now, let's get more into a little bit of the chronological timeline. So, 15 years old, high school, golf. You're practicing, training year round as much as you can in the Pittsburgh area. Did you know where you wanted to go to college? Did you have a path in your mind, or was it one of those things where you just kept working hard and you had your mind set on whatever door opened that was the next best step, you would take it?
Well, I had made a decision, again, as I said, to play on the PGA Tour, and there's a large difference between the grass in the southern United States and the grass in the northern United States. And I was a big fan of Tom Watson, but also Jack Nicklaus. And I also remember Jack Nicklaus saying that he never played well in the South until he moved to Florida back in 1970. And so I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to have to go to a school in the South because I need to learn how to play on southern grasses, Bermuda grasses. And so I started playing well. When I was like 16, 17, I qualified for the United States Junior Amateur Championship. I'd won some junior tournaments in the area. I played well in some AJGA tournaments, American Junior Golf Association tournaments, and got the eyes of some of the great college golf coaches looking at me, and they would talk to me, and they sent me letters, trying to get me to visit the school, this, that, and the other. And so I wanted to go to a big school in the South, and I went on a recruiting trip to LSU, and I absolutely fell in love with the place. I wanted to go to a big school in the South that had fraternities, that had great all-around sports programs, because I'm a huge sports fan. And LSU was ideal for me. And I went there, went on a recruiting trip, and a couple days there on campus, and I came back, and, my parents were like, well, what do you think? I said, that's where I'm going to go to school. And I said, I'm going to cancel the rest of my recruiting trips. I signed a national letter of intent at January. And, I went to LSU. I played there from 1982 through 1986. And I graduated from there in December of 86. Golf is a very hard sport, especially back then, because there was no restriction in terms of how many days you could be away from school. Now they restrict it to 30 or 40 days. But back then it was, you go and you do your thing and get your grades and hopefully they're good. So we were gone 30, 40 days a year. So I took my time getting my degree. I know I was on scholarship and my parents didn't have to, bear the cost. And so I graduated in 4.5 years instead of 4 years. And, with about a 3.0 grade point average. And, I got a degree in business administration with a major in marketing and a minor in history. So it worked out good. And then I graduated in December of 1986. And I turned professional in March of 1987. And I've remained such since then.
Now, I guess we can actually mix it together. I want to hear your take on going to Q school, playing in tournaments, getting sponsors exemptions. What's it like compared to college? I know that there's been about a 20 or 30 year difference to how it is now and how much more publicized and commercialized the web.com tour and the PGA tour is to when you first came out. But what's one of the major differences you realize going from amateur college to turning pro, being on tour?
Well, it's a great question. I was a pretty good college player. I didn't win a tournament in college, but I think I had a half a dozen second place finishes. I played well. I was a good player. I became a very good amateur player after my last year of eligibility, which was May of 1986. I won going into there, I had won the Western Pennsylvania Amateur in 1980. 1984 and 1985, I had qualified for the U.S. Open as a 20-year-old amateur in 1984. I'd played in 3 straight U.S. Amateur Championships from 83 through 86. And then in the summer of 1986, and then I also won the Pennsylvania State Amateur in 1985. And then summer of 1986 is when I really, really came to my own as an amateur. I won the Northeast Amateur, which is one of the top 6 amateur tournaments in the nation. I won that. I won the Mid-Atlantic Amateur, and then I also won the thing called the Monroe Invitational, which is a very elite field as a match play tournament. And so right then and there, I thought, you know what, I've got it. I can play. And so I turned professional. And what you realize is that nobody at the professional level really cares what you did as an amateur. It makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. And the biggest shock, I guess, would be that, you know, you go out there and you play in these mini tour events. Back then, there was no, you know, nationwide web.com tour. There was nothing like that when I was playing. When I first came out, you either played in South Africa, you played in Asia, you played in Europe, or you played mini tours all around the United States. And so what I quickly realized was I would go out and I'd play mini tour events, 2 and 3 day tournaments, and I would shoot 67 and feel pretty good about myself. And I'd come in, I'd look at the board, and there'd be like 162, you know, 463s, 764s. I mean, it was unbelievable how many great players there are that nobody has heard of, and that is still the case. You know, you sit there, and you know, everybody, the attention is drawn to the PGA Tour, the Champions Tour, the Web.com Tour, European Tour, but there are great, talented players all around the world that nobody ever hears of, and that they're just, you know, they're plying the trade, looking to get that break to play well in PGA Tour qualifying, Web.com Tour qualifying, and you know, once they get there, you know, it's an extra shot of confidence that gets you over the top to get you playing well at the next level. So I would probably say the biggest shock going from a great amateur player to a professional was the fact that, man, there are a lot of really great players out there, and you know, which for me is I always take everything as a challenge, and I just like, well, I just have to outwork all of them. I've got some talent. I'm a talented guy. I'm an athletic guy, but I'm just going to have to outwork the rest of these guys. And so that's basically what I did my entire career. But the biggest shock for a lot, especially for a lot of really good college players and amateurs, is how deep the game of golf is in terms of great players that nobody's ever heard of.
Wow, that's a great insight. Because I think in other sports, especially in North America, we're used to. I mean, you think about somebody like LeBron James, or I think it's Bryce Harper for the Caps. The Washington Nationals, and then even if somebody like Andrew Luck or Johnny Manziel, we know about them when they're 16, 17 years old, and when they finally, quote unquote, hit the spotlight, we've been following for 3 or 4 years. With golf, it's pretty much any tournament, any weekend, anywhere. Like you said, an unknown can shock, you know, the golf universe, and that's unique. That's very unique.
It is unique, and people blossom at different ages. People blossom at different times, and you know, you take a look at a guy like Sergio Garcia, who exploded on the scene back when he was 19, back in 1999, and he hasn't had as great a career as we all thought that he was going to have. But that was a guy that everybody was watching, you know, when he was 15 and 15 years old. And then you've got some other guys like a Ken Duke, you know, who's been plying his trade for years, for 20 years, and finally wins last year. And nobody's heard of Ken Duke. You know, like Ken Duke is now, he's a PGA Tour winner, having won the Travelers last year up in Connecticut. So everybody blossoms at different ages and different times. A lot of it really is, what I have learned is that it really is, the game of golf is really, it's a study of mental toughness, because the game is so hard and it's so taxing mentally and physically. The only guys that are going to stay out there and going to do well are the guys that are mentally tough. And again, you've got to be patient. You've got to work hard. You have to. It's good to have a great family there as a support system, because the game can really deliver some humbling blows to you. And it's one of those things where you go around and you play, and you know, I've been playing these mini tour events since I've been in Florida, getting myself prepared to play in Champions Tour qualifiers this winter. Man, there's great players all over the place, but that has always been the case. It's not surprising to me.
Now, you just brought up something I definitely want to touch on. I want to talk about life on tour a little bit, but you're talking about mental toughness, and that's one of my, let's just say it's one of the things I love talking about because there's so many different aspects of it, but it really is just, it comes down to getting it done in adverse situations. Now, looking back on your career, and even now as we're trying to qualify for the Champions Tour, what one aspect of mental toughness or your preparation have you tweaked in the past, year or so, that you've seen results and you've seen an improvement that maybe earlier in your career you wouldn't have done?
Well, I would probably say I can tell you right now that I am much more mentally tough now than I was when I was playing on the PGA Tour. And the biggest difference is there's two differences, and they're equally the same. Number one is being more patient, realizing that this is not a game of perfect, and that you're not going to be perfect. And the only thing that you can do as soon as a golf ball leaves the palm face, you have absolutely no control over what's going to happen. The only thing you can control is your reaction to what happens, and a lot of that goes into patience. And the other thing that I have really worked on is getting myself in the proper frame of mind to just not lament hitting a poor shot every now and then. I just don't get too worked up about it. I'm immediately able to focus myself on the next shot, which is the most important thing. And the other aspect in terms of physical game, I've always worked extraordinarily hard on my short game and my wedge game because that really takes all the pressure off the rest of the game. But mentally, I would probably say I'm definitely more patient now than I have been in the past, and I do a much better job of getting myself in the proper frame of mind that when I get out there, nothing is going to bother me.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's the curse of the young athlete that you're just impatient. I don't think you can ever fast track that. You're always going to be impatient. But over the course of your career, it's good to hear that. Definitely something where you just, if you hit a bad shot, you hit a bad shot.
Yeah, the only shot that matters is the next shot. The last shot has absolutely nothing to do with the shot you're about ready to play. And I've gotten very good at doing that over the last 7 or 8, 10 years since I've been working with Greer Industries and Lakewood National Golf Club. It's allowed me to really step away from the game and get very introspective because I haven't, going into this year, I've only played, I usually only play about 3 or 4 tournaments a year, so I really don't compete much anymore. And so when I competed, what I had to do, because I did not have the so-called starts, the so-called tournament toughness against the other guys that I was playing. In West Virginia, I always competing against David Bradshaw. Well, he's trying to play each and every week. A lot of the other section professionals compete each and every week. Well, I don't. I play 3 times a year. And so what I tried to do was always make sure that I was more mentally prepared than the rest of the guys. And so I started getting introspective in terms of what do you need to do in your mental preparation to get there where although you're not playing much tournament golf, but when you do play tournament golf, you operate at a high level. And really that's what it is getting myself in the proper frame of mind on a consistent basis where nothing's going to bother me. And, go out there and hit a bad shot, find it, and I'm going to hit it again and figure out some way to get the ball in the hole. And I really don't care what it looks like.
I love it. Yeah, before we can go off on a separate tangent about that, but yeah, mental toughness is I don't think it's underrated at all. I think Bobby Knight said mental toughness is to physical ability as 4 is to 1. So yeah, it's always great hearing.
That's all the great athletes, not just in the game of golf, but all the great athletes have mental toughness. Jack Nicklaus is probably the greatest in the history of the game in terms of being able to compartmentalize his life. Very complex businessman, complex business, a lot of moving parts. But as soon as Jack arrived at the golf course, it was time for him to focus on golf, and he was able to shut the door on the business aspect and the other aspects of his professional life and his family life, and just able to focus on the game of golf because that's what he was doing at that time. And then he was off the golf course, he'd focus on family, he would focus on his business. But probably the greatest ever lived in terms of being able to compartmentalize his life was Jack Nicklaus.
Awesome. So let's get back on track here a little bit and talk about life on tour. What was it like not necessarily your first couple of experiences, but what is it like on tour being, as you said earlier in your career, you weren't as sharp mentally. Can you take us back to just being on tour?
Oh, sure. I first turned pro, and again, this is before you really you had anything other than the PGA Tour to play on. So I spent the first couple of years, I played the South African Tour in 88 and 89, and I played the Canadian Tour in 1989, in the summer of 1989. And then I got my first time, I got to the finals of PGA Tour qualifying. I missed getting my PGA Tour card by 2 shots. but I was fully exempt on that time, the Ben Hogan Tour, which is now morphed into the Web.com Tour that we see today. The life on tour, I absolutely loved it. I love the travel. I don't mind hotels. The camaraderie that you have with the other players, it literally is like a traveling circus, a traveling family. And I can tell you that playing on the PGA Tour especially is the most fun that you can have in your life. And when you go and you think about the opportunity and all the work and all the effort and all the preparation that got you, that got you to where you're at the pinnacle of your sport, and you're out there and, you're looking around, you've got Ben Crenshaw, you got Jack Nicklaus, you've got Seve Ballesteros, you've got Nick Price, you got Greg Norman, Tiger Woods, Ernie Els, Davis Love, all these guys that you've spent all those years watching on television, and you're now one of them. You're now competing with them. And, you're treated like a king out there. The tournament directors bend over backwards to take care of the players and their families. You're playing on the best golf courses in the United States that are in the best condition you're going to be in all year. You're playing in front of people. It's, you've got, you're getting paid by equipment manufacturers for, your ball, your shoe, your glove, your clothing, your hat, your clubs, your bag. You got everything. Basically, you're marketing yourself out there, and you're making money on the side. And the purses are, especially these days with the new television contracts that really kicked in 2001. The money out there is absolutely fabulous, and I think that's actually, to kind of go off on a tangent, I think that's one of the reasons why we have not been competitive in terms of the Ryder Cup, is because I think a lot of our players, although they're great competitors and they are great players, they might not be as hungry as they would be if they weren't making as much money and weren't as financially comfortable as they are now. And you've got guys, the upper echelon that are playing in the Ryder Cup. I mean, these guys are worth, $25 to, $100 million plus. I mean, Tiger Woods got a net worth of probably $500 million. And so I think that when you get that level of income, that level of wealth, I think it has a tendency to maybe make you not as hungry as maybe you should be. And but the PGA Tour it's the greatest place. It's the greatest way to make a living. You sit there and all little boys dream. No little boys dream of being, pharmacists, attorneys, CPAs. They all dream of being baseball players, football players, basketball players, tennis players, and golfers. And, I had the opportunity, when I was 14 years old, and I said that's what I wanted to do. And the Lord blessed me with the ability and great parents and a great support system and a great work ethic that I got there. And I stayed there and made a living doing it. It's just kind of like a fantasy world.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you had to go back to Q school once, right?
I did. Yeah. Actually, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, share with us about Q school. Q school is one of my fantasies as far as I would love to hear from somebody. I just want to hear your story. I love hearing about Q school.
Well, I've been on the good end and I've been on the bad end of Q school. And you miss a number of times. This, that, and the other. I mean, I was a journeyman professional. I wasn't obviously get out there, and I spent 5 years on the PGA Tour. If you do that, obviously you're a little bit different than the guy that just had a ham sandwich and a cup of coffee out there. But I've had, Q school stories where I've missed by a shot, I've missed by 2 shots. My greatest Q school story really is in December of 1997. I had just come off of playing the Nike Tour and had played pretty well, finished in the top 50 on the money list there, and was back at the finals of Q school, playing out in Greenleaf out in Haines City, Florida in December of 1997. And I actually had played very well all week. I didn't make any putts. I really had struggled with the putter, and through 4.5 rounds, I was well out of it. I was not in the PGA scorecard that year. I was just going to really play well the last round and a half just to make sure I was fully exempt on the Nike Tour. So my caddy, I remember I 3-putted the 18th hole, which was my 9th hole for the day. You go in a reverse horseshoe off the tees, and I was so far back, and I actually started on the back 9 that day, and with a round and a half left, with 2 rounds left to start on the back 9, I 3-putt from about 15 feet on the 18th hole, which is my 9th hole, and I've had it because I've really hit the ball very well, but I've really putted poorly, and so I came off the 18th green, and my caddy looked at me and he just said, "You know what?" He said, "We're not going to get it done this year." He said, "Let's make sure that we're going to get our Nike card. We're going to be fully exempt." And he said, "You know what?" I said, let's just have fun the next day and a half. He said, because I haven't had any fun. Have you? And I said, you know what, I haven't. Excuse me. So I went out on the second 9 that day and shot 32, which was 4 under par, and shot 70 for the day. I thought, well, that's okay. I moved up a little bit. And then I went to bed knowing that I was likely not going to get my PGA Tour card. But I woke up that next morning, and, as I alluded to earlier, I worked very hard at getting myself in the proper frame of mind. And so I woke up the next morning, and I just really worked on getting really relaxed. And I woke up, and I was so loose and so relaxed and in such a good mood. I got there, and my caddy was there, and I said, so what do you think, Mick? He says, I think 63 gets us in. I said, I do too. I said, let's go get one of those. And sure enough, I went and I shot 63. I was 8 under par through the first 11 holes, and then I birdied the 15th hole. The 16th hole, par 3, to go 9 under par for the day. And then I made a bogey at 18, which was kind of one of those things. I hit a pretty good tee shot down the left-hand side of the fairway. The ball kicked left into the trees. And I really just thought, you know what, I think 8 under par is going to be the number, which is what 63 was. I thought 8 under is going to be good. Let's just make bogey and not do something stupid. And I get in and I shoot 63. And the count that was, now because of the way they've changed Q School, now you have to go through the web.com tour. But it turned out to be the lowest score ever shot to qualify on the number at PGA Tour qualifying in history. And I shot 63. I played the last 27 holes in 12 under par, and got my card back right on the number and went out and had my best year ever in 1998. So, but Q School is one of those things where it requires, you have to be extraordinarily relaxed, but it's hard to be relaxed because it's your career. And so it takes an extraordinary amount of patience and persistence, especially at Q School, because you're going to make some mistakes in the course of 108 holes. And again, the mental toughness comes in to where you're just not going to let anything bother you. And if you make a bogey or make a double bogey, it's okay. Well, that happened early in the round. Let's move on. So the same thing, the same thing happened, this year at Q School, the Champions Tour. I've been away from the competitive game of golf since 2003, and I went back to the Champions Tour qualifying at John Racy. I work for Greer Industries, and Mr. Racy for years has been telling me, when you turn 50, you're going to have to he said, you're going to have to try that because you're such a good player, take great care of yourself. And, we came up with a plan. So I went down to Florida and I prepared for about a month in Florida, and I went through tour qualifying for the Champions Tour. And the funny thing was that my oldest son, Charlie, who was 18, he caddied for me at the first and second stage this year. I played the first stage at Orange County National, Orlando, Florida. And I double bogeyed the first hole. It was the funniest thing. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I just hit the ball 6 times on a par 4, and there was like no reason at all. And I came off the green. I handed my putter to Charlie, my oldest son, and I just said, you know what? I said we've got 71 more holes to take care of that. And I ended up shooting 12 under par for the week, and I finished second. And then I got to the finals out in Arizona and played well there and shot 9 under par and finished 14th out there. So, it's one of those things where, a young kid or somebody that's less experienced, they make that double bogey on the first hole. They think, oh, yeah, here we go. This is going to be a great week. When, a guy such as myself, it's like, you know what, who cares? I've got 71 more holes to wipe out that double bogey, and I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to birdie. So let's just go and move on, and let's fall in love with that next tee shot and go.
Yeah. No, I only have a couple more questions, but
sure.
It's come up a couple times, and just as far as different aspects of mental toughness, and I know, being a former athlete, that one of the things that we deal with, whether it's in training, whether it's on the field, whether it's on the tee, whether it's before we go to bed, or if we can't even sleep at night, we have these doubts. We have these doubts about our ability. We have these doubts about our timing, our place, our status, whatever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, to pass our conversation here, I'm hearing just, a story that is fascinating to me, because your career has been long, but it hasn't been typical by any stretch of the imagination. But your patience and your persistence and your love of golf has gotten you to a point where you're at peace, whether you're 15 under par or you're 15 over par. And my question is, after all that, is how do you overcome doubt? Is that something that, as a golfer, you've just learned over time, or is it something where you have a ritual or a routine, or you have a memory that you like to go back to? But I just feel like doubt is one of those things where, no matter what type of athlete you are, but especially golf, because it's insular, it's in your mind. If you're struggling in your mind, it's pretty hard to go out there and execute, the link.
Well,
so,
yeah, everybody deals with doubt. But what you don't want to do is you do not want to give negative thoughts, negative pictures, any power. I basically, if I sit there and I'll get on a tee and there'll be water left and there'll be out of bounds right, and I'll be looking, oh gosh, and I just I'll say to myself, like, really, you're really worried about that, and I back off and I just kind of laugh it off, try not to give the negative thoughts or the doubts any power. What I try to do is every human being, and everybody knows, anybody that pays any attention as an adult, realize that as you and I are talking to each other, you talk to yourself in like 1,500 words a minute as you and I are carrying on a conversation. And so what I take great is how I talk to myself. I am constantly, I've worked with Bob Rotella as a golf sports psychologist since 1993. And Doc and I, you want to be humble and everything else, and I do believe I'm a pretty humble person. At least I believe that. I try not to, I'm not braggadocious, this, that, and the other. But what Rotella always talked about was that you've got to get super cocky internally. And I talk to myself all the time in a very positive way, constantly telling myself that, if I hit a bad shot and I'm in a bunker next to a green and it's a short-sided and I don't have a whole lot of room to work with, it's a deep lip and got to get the ball up and down and up very quickly and bat out of the green and stop it. If I put myself in a situation like that, the first thing that comes to my mind is I am probably the only person playing today that's going to be able to get this ball up and down from here. Or if I have a putt of like 60 feet and it's got 4 different breaks in it, before I ever step up to the putt, I say to myself, I am probably going to make this. I always talk in the positive to myself, and I always try to become super cocky internally. Now you can't see that because I don't walk around banging my my fist on my chest and doing a cocky dance after I hole a putt. I don't do that sort of stuff. But inside, I am constantly monitoring how I talk to myself. I'm constantly telling myself how great I am. I'm the greatest driver. I'm the best driver of the golf ball playing today. I am the greatest putter. All that sort of stuff. And it goes back to years ago. I remember talking to Rotella, and again, as I said, I worked with him for 20 years, and we talked about Michael Jordan. And he said, I had a conversation with Michael Jordan. He said, I asked him, I said, all right, situation. You're going and you're playing in the NBA Finals. And he said, you've missed the first 10 shots that you put up. What are you thinking on the 11th shot? He said, well, I think that I'm going to make the 11th shot. He says, the odds are with me that I've missed the first 10. I'm due to make one. I'm going to make the 11th shot. He said, okay. He says, let's flip that. He said, let's say that you have made the first 10 shots. What do you think about the 11th shot? He said, well, 11th shot. He said, I'm hot. I'm going to make it too. And he said, well, you really can't have it both ways. And he said, Michael Jordan, he looked at me, he said, who says? He said, this isn't your reality. He said, this is my reality. He said, I control my reality. And so I thought about that, and I thought, man, that's awesome. Ever since then, I've really, really monitored how I talk to myself. And like I said, it's not something where you're sitting there and you're pounding your chest telling everybody how great you are, but you're telling yourself internally how great you are. And it kind of goes to I've done a lot of teaching at Pikewood National Golf Club over the years, and a lot of people come to me because they have my playing ability, and they know, well, he got there and he knows how to get there and he's a great player. And a lot of people complain about their putting. And so what I tell people mentally is that you ask somebody about their putting, most people say, oh, I'm not a very good putter, this, that, and the other, and they constantly tell themselves that. And I tell them, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you expect. And if you consistently tell yourself and tell other people that you're not a good putter, you're not going to be a good putter. And so what you do is you do some mental exercises, which is after you get done playing a round of golf, you count up how many great putts you hit. They don't have to go in to be great. Sometimes great putts don't go in. But you think about how many great putts you hit, you count those up, and then you think about how many shots your putter saved you. You count those up, and then you forget the rest. And if you do that every single round of golf that you play for a month, 2 months, or whatnot, you will have talked yourself into becoming a great putter.
That's very good. I mean, for the record, you don't have to apply that to just golf. You can apply that to everything. You can apply that to work. You can apply that to relationships. You can apply that to learning how to cook.
Yes, no,
that's awesome.
You can. I mean, look, people gravitate to positive people. Okay, look, you can look at, is the glass half empty? Is it half full? Well, the glass is half full. The choice is yours. You can look at something in a negative manner, or you can look at something in a positive manner. It's just one of those things. You sit there again looking at the golf course. You put the ball in a bad place, I take a look at that and I say to myself, this is the opportunity for me to show everybody what a great short game I have. You always want to talk in the positive and think in the positive and be very kind to yourself. Again, whether you're a marketing executive, a CPA, a lawyer, whether you're a chef, whether you're a professional athlete, you always want to be very kind to yourself when you talk to yourself, because life is hard enough as it is. You need to be on your own side. You shouldn't be pulling against yourself.
Yeah. I love it. Now, as we're wrapping up here, tell us about Champions Tour, what you're working on now, what you're trying to do in the next year to 18 months. What's on your plate?
Well, what I have is this. Again, as I said, I finished 14th out at the finals. I needed the top 5 are fully exempt, and then the next 7 are conditionally exempt. Well, I finished tied for 14th, and I have what's referred to as associate status, which gets me straight into the Monday qualifiers for each of the tournaments that are full field events. So basically what I'm doing is I'm down here in South Florida, and I am playing in mini tour events, 2 or 3 every single week on this little mini tour. I'm competing against these young kids, hit the ball 30, 40 yards by me, but that's okay because I know that I'm cagey and I'm crusty and I can outthink them on the golf course. So I am competing in these tournaments to keep my tournament toughness that I have developed over the last several months, especially getting prepared for Q School. And then what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to go to every single Monday qualifier that I am able to get to this winter, and then I'll be back at Pikewood National Golf Club towards the end of May, and by that time I hopefully will have played my way on to the Champions Tour, and hopefully have won. And then when I get back in May, just kind of have a meeting with Mr. Racy and Mr. Gwynn and see what they want me to do. But right now I'm working on the game each and every day. I spend a lot of time working on my short game and my wedge game. With regards to my golf swing isn't going to change too much. I'm 50 years old. I've basically been in the golf club the same for about the last 12 years. Made some swing changes back in around 2000, 1999, 2000, and 1999 and 2000. So for the last 12 years, I've really swung the golf club the same way. So, but I'm always looking to refine things, my fundamentals, my grip, my posture, my ball position, my alignment. And, I'm always just trying to hit balls in terms of getting better with repetition. And I spend, again, as I said, I spend a lot of time on my short game because that's the most important component of the game. The game, no matter how far these guys hit it, the Dustin Johnsons, the Bubba Watsons, the Tiger Woods, the game is still played from 100 yards and in. So my goal each and every day is to get better, and I want to become a Marine Corps sniper with my wedges. I just want to take dead aim and tear the hole out with my wedge.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Bob, before we do that, where can our listeners thank you for doing this interview, whether it's Twitter, email, what have you? Where can they reach out to you and thank you?
Well, I'm on Twitter. I am at BobFriend_golf on Twitter. And Geez, I really don't do much on Facebook, but they can hopefully follow me on the Champions Tour at pgatour.com under the Champions Tour thumb. And also this little tour that I play down here is called the Golf Slinger Tour, GolfSlinger, the Golf Slinger Tour. And just go there, and, they have, like I said, 3 tournaments every week. And I didn't play very well today, and that happens sometimes. But last Thursday, shot 69 and some heavy winds and finished second. So, and I've won one of these as well. So, again, the old KG veteran competing against the young kids is kind of fun.
Oh, I bet you're having a blast. I bet you're having a blast. Well, Bob, I truly want to thank you. I truly want to thank you for coming on. This was, and one of the things that I always, I try not to go on, my little warpath as far as trains of thought, but, the mental side of anything that you do, whether you're a garbage man or you're a SEAL team sniper or you're a golfer or you are a marketing executive or you make Subway sandwiches, if you can't get your mind in a place to support your hands and your feet, you're not going to last long, and you're going to hate what you're doing. So I love how in-depth we got on the mental side of the game.
Well, that's true. You got to love what you do, and you have to be mentally engaged in what you're doing.
Well, Bob, thank you for coming on the show, and much luck. I don't think you're going to need it, but much luck on the tour and practicing in the mini tours, and we'll definitely be checking in on you soon.
Thanks so much, David. Enjoyed talking with you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of it.